The corridors of the Galaxis Space Academy buzzed with the usual chatter, cadets discussing their latest training drills, debating the best starship designs, and sharing stories from their home planets. But today, a new topic filled the air. A transfer cadet from the legendary Deathworld, a planet known for its harsh conditions and fierce creatures. Her name was Sarah, and many whispered about the strange skills and toughness she must have. The Academy was a place where the best young minds and bodies in the galaxy trained to become future explorers, soldiers and leaders. It was known for pushing cadets to their limits, both physically and mentally. And for many, the idea of a Deathworlder joining their ranks was both exciting and worrying. Sarah had arrived only 2 days ago. Tall, lean, and with eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She moved through the academy halls quietly, carrying herself with a calm confidence that made some cadets uneasy. Her uniform was spotless, but her boots looked worn, as if they had been through rough terrain. She did not speak much, choosing instead to observe her surroundings carefully. At the training grounds, cadets whispered about the Deathworlder. Some admired her bravery for leaving a dangerous planet to come here. Others were suspicious. No way she can handle the Academy's rules and drills, one said. She's probably just lucky on her home planet, but Sarah kept to herself. She attended every class, every physical test, always finishing near the top. Her strength and speed were clear. What no one knew yet was how much her instincts had been shaped by her home planet, a place where only the toughest survived. The rumors reached their peak during a mid-morning break. A group of older cadets, led by a tall, confident boy named Ral, decided to welcome Sarah in their own way. They had heard the stories, and instead of respecting her, they wanted to see if she was as tough as people said. The group gathered in a narrow corridor near the Academy's central hub. This was a place where cadets passed often, but it was just wide enough for a small group to block someone's path. Ral grinned as he whispered to his friends, "Let's see if this Deathworlder can handle herself. If she falls, we'll be the heroes. If not, well, it'll be a good story." Sarah was walking alone when she entered the corridor. Her steps were steady, eyes focused ahead. She didn't seem to notice the group waiting for her. Suddenly, Ral stepped forward and blocked her way. "Hey, Deathworlder," he said with a mocking tone. "You're new here. We thought you might want a little initiation." Sarah stopped and looked at him, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "I don't want trouble," she said quietly. Ral laughed. "Trouble finds you if you're weak. Let's find out if you're strong enough for the Academy." Without warning, Ral lunged forward. Sarah barely moved, just a slight shift in her weight, and in a blink she grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. His surprised shout echoed in the corridor as he stumbled forward and collapsed to the floor, clutching his arm. Before his friends could react, Sarah was already moving. In just seconds, she spun and blocked another attacker's punch with ease. The next two tried to grab her at once, but her reflexes were lightning fast. With a sharp kick and a push, she sent both tumbling to the ground. The last one tried to run, but Sarah caught him with a quick step and a gentle but firm shove that knocked him against the wall. He groaned and slid down to the floor, clearly outmatched. All of this happened in less than 12 seconds. The corridor was silent for a moment, except for the heavy breathing of the defeated cadets. Other students who had heard the commotion rushed over, their eyes wide with shock. Some whispered, "Did she really just do that so fast?" Others looked at Sarah with a new respect and a little fear. Sarah straightened her uniform, looked at the 4 cadets on the floor, and said quietly, "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will defend myself." The Academy's security officers arrived quickly after someone sent an alert. They separated the groups and began to ask questions. Ral, still rubbing his arm, glared at Sarah. "This isn't over," he muttered. One of the security officers, Captain Marr, looked Sarah over carefully. "You have skills we don't see every day," he said. "But you need to understand Academy rules. Fighting like this can't be tolerated." Sarah nodded. "I understand. But if someone attacks me, I will defend myself." Captain Marr seemed to respect her honesty. "Good. You'll have a chance to prove yourself in training. No more fights." After the officers left, Sarah walked down the corridor alone, her steps calm. Her mind was already turning to what would come next. The Academy was full of challenges, and she knew this was only the beginning. Back in the dormitories, Sarah took out a small device from her bag. It showed images of her homeworld, a harsh, unforgiving planet filled with thick jungles, deadly creatures and storms that could last for days. She touched the screen gently. Her father had once told her, "On Deathworld, strength is not just muscle. It's your mind. It's your heart. You learn to survive, not just fight." Sarah smiled faintly. That was the lesson she carried with her. Here in the academy, surrounded by strangers and rivals, she would prove that a Deathworlder's strength was more than just physical. As the sun set over the academy's gleaming towers, Sarah prepared for her next day of training. She was ready to face whatever came her way, because on her home planet only the strongest survived. And here she would become the strongest of all. The next morning, the academy was alive with whispers and glances toward Sarah. Her quick defense had become the talk of every hallway, cafeteria table, and training ground. Some cadets looked at her with admiration, others with suspicion. To many, Sarah was a mystery, a Deathworlder with skills far beyond their experience, but also a stranger who disrupted the delicate balance of academy life. Sarah herself felt the change. While she had hoped to blend in and focus on training, the incident had made her stand out like a beacon. She noticed some cadets crossing the street to avoid her path, while others tried to catch her attention, either to congratulate or challenge her. At breakfast, a group of first-year cadets whispered about the fight. "Did you see how fast she moved?" one asked. "It was like she knew what would happen before it did." Another shook his head. "That kind of strength makes me nervous. What if she loses control?" Sarah overheard the talk but said nothing. She kept her eyes on her food, thinking about the long days ahead. Her instructor for the morning, Lieutenant Ramos, was a veteran of many space missions. He was known for being strict but fair. When he called the class together, he looked directly at Sarah. "Cadets," he began, "we have many new faces this semester. I expect each of you to work hard and respect the Academy's rules. Strength is important, but control and teamwork matter even more." He paused and then added, "And remember, every action has consequences." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of his words. The day's training was intense. The cadets ran through obstacle courses, practiced hand-to-hand combat, and studied survival tactics. Sarah excelled in every exercise, her Deathworlder instincts allowing her to move faster and react quicker than most. Yet, despite her success, Sarah noticed subtle signs of tension. Some cadets avoided partnering with her during drills, others whispered behind her back. Even in group discussions, Sarah felt her ideas were met with polite nods but little real attention. One afternoon, while working on a survival exercise in the simulated jungle environment, Sarah was paired with a cadet named Jalen. Unlike some of the others, Jalen didn't seem threatened by her. He listened carefully as Sarah shared strategies based on her experience with harsh environments. "You really grew up in a place like this?" Jalen asked, pointing to the fake trees and thick underbrush around them. Sarah smiled faintly. "My home is harder. The plants bite, the animals hunt, and the storms don't stop. You learn to trust your instincts." Jalen nodded, impressed. "I can see why you're so fast and strong. But it's not just about fighting, right?" "No," Sarah said. "It's about staying calm and knowing when to act. The jungle teaches patience." As they worked together, Sarah felt a small spark of hope. Maybe not everyone saw her as a threat, however. Not everyone was so open. That evening, as Sarah made her way back to the dorms, she noticed a group of cadets following her at a distance. She kept her pace steady but alert. Suddenly, one of them stepped forward, blocking her path near the Academy's training yard. "We need to talk," he said, his tone serious. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "Look, this isn't about the fight earlier," the cadet said quickly. "We just want to warn you. Some here don't like how you upset things. You're different." "That's dangerous," Sarah crossed her arms. "I'm here to learn. I don't want problems." "Problems find people like you," the cadet replied. "You need to be careful. Not everyone respects Deathworlders." Before Sarah could respond, the cadet and his friends walked away, leaving her alone in the dim light of the Academy's street lamps. She sighed. The Academy was supposed to be a place of learning and unity, but old fears and rivalries ran deep. The next day, things grew worse. During a team combat drill, Sarah's partner was deliberately distracted by another cadet, causing a near failure. When Sarah confronted the cadet afterward, he shrugged and walked away with a smirk. Even some instructors seemed unsure how to handle her. Lieutenant Ramos called Sarah aside after training. "Your skills are impressive," he said quietly, "but you must learn to work with others. Strength without cooperation leads to isolation." Sarah nodded. I'm trying. Good, he said. But watch your back. Not everyone wants you to succeed. That evening, Sarah found herself alone in the Academy's common room. Most cadets had left for the day, but she stayed behind, reviewing training manuals and simulation programs on her personal device. Her thoughts drifted to her home planet, the Deathworld. She remembered her family, the lessons her father taught her, and the harsh beauty of the wild lands where she grew up. On Deathworld, survival was a daily test. Every step could bring danger, but it also brought strength. Sarah had learned that true power came not just from fighting, but from understanding and respect. Suddenly, her device beeped with an incoming message. It was from Jalen. Hey, I know it's been tough here. If you want, meet me tomorrow after training. I think we can help each other. Sarah smiled for the first time in days. Maybe this place wasn't so cold after all. The following morning, Sarah and Jalen met near the Academy's training gym. They began practicing combat drills together, sharing techniques and pushing each other to improve. Slowly, other cadets started to join their sessions. Word spread that Sarah's methods were effective, and her calm, confident attitude drew more attention. Still, some cadets remained distant, watching from afar and whispering about her strange ways. Meanwhile, the Academy leadership took notice. The director arranged a private meeting with Sarah. The room was sleek and bright, filled with holographic displays of star systems and training schedules. Cadet Sarah, the director said, your skills are remarkable. You remind me of the best we've seen in years. Sarah bowed her head slightly. Thank you, sir. However, the director continued, your arrival has stirred tension. The Academy is more than just physical strength. It is about unity, discipline, and trust. We will support you, but you must be prepared for challenges beyond the classroom. Sarah met his gaze. I understand. I'm ready. As she left the meeting, Sarah felt a mixture of pride and pressure. She knew the Academy's challenges were just beginning. Days passed, and Sarah continued to train harder than ever. Her body grew stronger, her mind sharper. But the social battles were harder to win. Some cadets still looked at her with suspicion or envy. One afternoon, Sarah caught a group of cadets huddled together, whispering and glancing her way. She couldn't hear all their words, but one name stood out. Radical Faction. Curious and concerned, Sarah began to ask questions. She learned that some cadets believed the Academy's leadership was weak and wanted to take control for their own reasons. These radicals talked about secret plans and hidden weapons. Sarah realized this was no ordinary rivalry. The Academy itself might be in danger. Determined to protect her new home, Sarah started watching carefully. She trained her senses to detect unusual behavior and quietly gathered information. Her skills from the Deathworld helped her stay calm and alert. She knew that survival was not just about strength, but about knowledge and trust. The Academy was no longer just a training ground. It was a place where loyalty and courage would be tested in ways she had never imagined. As the sun set on another long day, Sarah stood on the Academy's observation deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers. But Sarah was ready. She had survived Deathworld's wilds, and here she would survive and thrive. The real test was coming. And Sarah was prepared to face it head-on. The Academy's simulated mission was supposed to be just another test, a chance for cadets to show their skills in a controlled environment. But for Sarah and her team, it quickly became something far more dangerous. The simulation was designed to mimic a hostile alien planet, complete with unpredictable weather, tricky terrain, and hidden threats. Each team had to find a way to complete their objectives while working together. For Sarah, this was the perfect chance to prove herself, not just through strength, but through leadership. Her team was a mix of cadets: Jalen, who had become her closest ally; Mira, a sharp-minded strategist; Tavo, a tech expert; and Ral, the same cadet who had jumped her before, still carrying a grudge. From the moment the mission began, Sarah focused on the task. She led her team through dense forests, rocky hills, and narrow canyons. Her senses, sharpened by years on Deathworld, helped her spot dangers others missed. She pointed out quicksand patches, hidden pits, and areas where dangerous creatures might lurk. The team moved cautiously, trusting Sarah's guidance more with each step. Jalen watched her carefully. You really know how to read the land, he said quietly. Sarah smiled, but her mind was alert. She knew that success would depend on more than just navigating the terrain. Suddenly, the mission took an unexpected turn. As they reached the halfway point, an explosion rocked the ground nearby. The simulation's weather shifted rapidly. The sky darkened, strong winds began to blow, and the temperature dropped. Visibility became poor. The team realized something was wrong. The simulation systems were supposed to control the environment, but this felt too real. Then, Tavo's communicator crackled to life with a strange voice. "Mission control no longer in command," the voice said coldly. "You are now under the control of the faction." Sarah's heart sank. The faction she had heard about, the radicals planning to disrupt the academy, had taken over the simulation. What started as a test had become a trap. Ral's eyes flickered with a strange look. "Looks like the faction wants to play games," he said quietly, stepping back from the group. Sarah narrowed her eyes. "Are you with them?" she asked, voice steady but firm. Ral hesitated, then smirked. "You're smart. Maybe you'll figure it out soon enough." Before anyone could react, the team was attacked. Mechanical drones, part of the simulation's equipment, suddenly turned hostile. They shot electric nets and small stun bolts, forcing the cadets to scatter and defend themselves. Sarah's instincts took over. She moved quickly, dodging the nets and disabling drones with precise strikes. Her team struggled but followed her lead. Mira shouted, "We need to regroup and find a way out." Sarah called back, "Head to the canyon. It has narrow passages, good for defense." The team fought their way through the attack, losing time but gaining ground. But they were not safe yet. Ral was nowhere to be seen. As they reached the canyon entrance, Sarah turned to Jalen. "Keep watch. Someone might be watching us." Jalen nodded, scanning the rocks. Suddenly, Ral appeared from behind a boulder, weapon drawn. "You think you can stop us?" he said, eyes burning with anger. "You don't belong here." Sarah stepped forward calmly. "This isn't the place for this fight, Ral. Let's end this peacefully." Ral laughed. "You don't understand. The faction will take this academy, and we will lead the next generation." Sarah shook her head. "I won't let that happen." Before Ral could respond, the drones attacked again. The fight was fierce, but Sarah's team worked together, using everything they had learned. Sarah herself moved like a shadow, quick, precise, and calm. She disabled Ral's weapon with a well-placed kick and grabbed him, holding him firmly. "Enough," she said. "You're done." Ral struggled but saw the determination in Sarah's eyes. Slowly, he stopped fighting. With Ral captured, the team focused on escaping. But the faction's control over the simulation meant their path was filled with dangers. Collapsed tunnels, electrified barriers, and more hostile drones. Using her knowledge of the terrain, Sarah led the team through a secret path she had spotted earlier. It was narrow and difficult, but it allowed them to avoid most dangers. When they finally reached the exit, they were exhausted but alive. The Academy's emergency systems took over, ending the simulation. Lights returned to normal and the weather stabilized. Sarah and her team were met by instructors and security officers. The director himself arrived, looking serious. "Cadets, you have just faced a real test," he said. "Not one of training, but of loyalty and courage." He turned to Sarah. "Your leadership today saved lives. You proved that strength without unity is nothing." Sarah nodded, feeling a mix of relief and pride. The director continued, "Ral will be questioned about his involvement with the faction. This incident shows us that the threats we face are not just from outside, but from within. We must stand together." Sarah's teammates looked at her with respect. Even Ral's expression was different, less hostile, more thoughtful. That night, Sarah lay awake in her dorm, replaying the day's events in her mind. The betrayal by Ral had hurt, but it had also revealed the depth of the faction's reach. She knew the academy was safer now, but the real battle was just beginning. Her training would have to go beyond physical strength and combat skills. She needed to build trust, gather allies, and prepare for whatever threats lay ahead. The stars outside her window twinkled quietly, promising adventure and danger. Sarah was ready. The academy was no longer the quiet place Sarah had first arrived at. The revelation of the faction's presence had sent ripples through the halls. Security had tightened, instructors were on high alert, and cadets whispered anxiously about what might come next. Sarah knew one thing clearly. Waiting was not an option. The faction had shown they were willing to disrupt the academy from the inside. If she wanted to protect her new home, she needed to act. She started gathering allies, cadets she trusted and those willing to stand against the faction. Jalen and Mira were quick to join her, and slowly others followed. Each had their own reasons. Some hated the idea of secret rebels in the academy. Others admired Sarah's courage and leadership. Together, they formed a small group that met in secret, sharing information and planning. Sarah's training on Deathworld had taught her much about survival and strategy. She applied those lessons here, teaching her group how to move quietly, watch carefully, and think several steps ahead. "We can't fight the faction alone," she told them one evening. "We need to be smart. We must learn their plans and stop them before they strike again." Jalen nodded. "Agreed. But how do we find them without putting ourselves in danger?" Sarah smiled. "We watch, we listen, and we act only when the time is right." The following days were filled with careful observation. Sarah's group watched for unusual meetings, intercepted secret messages, and learned to recognize the faction's signs. Their patience paid off. They discovered that the faction was planning a major strike during the Academy's final assessment, a test where cadets would prove their skills in simulated combat missions. The faction intended to use this opportunity to take control of key training facilities and sabotage the Academy's leadership. The news was serious. Sarah knew they had to prepare fast. She gathered her group again. "We have to be ready. When the assessment begins, we strike first." Mira, ever the strategist, laid out a plan. "We split into teams. Some protect the Academy's key areas. Others watch for the faction's movements. We stay connected." Tavo, the tech expert, worked on communication devices. "These will keep us in contact even if the faction tries to jam signals." Sarah trained her group hard. They practiced hand-to-hand combat, quick reactions, and teamwork. She shared techniques from Deathworld, teaching them how to stay calm under pressure and how to use the environment to their advantage. The day of the final assessment arrived. The academy was filled with excitement and tension. Cadets suited up, ready to prove themselves. Sarah's group moved quietly, taking their positions. The faction's members were also ready, their faces hard with determination. The battle began suddenly. The faction attacked first, using surprise and technology to try to seize control. But Sarah's group was prepared. In the narrow halls of the training complex, Sarah moved like a shadow, disabling enemies before they could react. Her team fought bravely, covering each other and staying focused. Jalen took down a faction member trying to sabotage a control panel. Mira coordinated their movements, sending messages that kept everyone in sync. Tavo hacked into the faction systems, shutting down their communication and disabling some of their equipment. Despite the fierce fighting, Sarah's group held their ground. At one point, Sarah found herself face-to-face with Ral. His eyes were filled with anger, but also something else: regret. "This doesn't have to end like this," Sarah said calmly. Ral hesitated, then dropped his weapon. "You're right. I was wrong." With Ral's surrender, the faction's plan began to crumble. Security officers arrived to secure the area and arrest the faction members. The academy director addressed the cadets the next day. "You have shown bravery, loyalty, and unity. Thanks to Cadet Sarah and her team, the academy is safe." Sarah felt a deep sense of pride, not just for herself, but for everyone who had stood together. As calm returned, Sarah received a secret message. It was simple but clear. "The real fight is just beginning. Be ready." She looked up at the stars from the academy's observation deck. The galaxy was full of challenges, but with strength, trust, and courage, Sarah knew humanity could face whatever came next. The days after the faction's defeat were quieter, but filled with new challenges. The academy had survived a dangerous test, but Sarah knew the peace would not last forever. The galaxy was vast and full of unknown threats, and this was only the beginning of her journey. Sarah's reputation had grown. Cadets who once avoided her now sought her advice and friendship. Even some instructors showed respect, seeing her not just as a strong fighter but as a leader. Still, Sarah stayed humble. She remembered the lessons from Deathworld, the importance of patience, respect, and constant learning. One morning, the academy's director called Sarah to his office. The room was filled with holographic maps of distant star systems and data streams from recent missions. "Cadet Sarah," he began, "your actions during the recent crisis have been exemplary. We have a new opportunity. one that requires your unique skills. Sarah listened carefully as the director explained. A distant planet known as Krylos had sent a distress signal. The planet was vital to the Alliance's interests, but no one knew the full danger there. We are forming a special team to investigate, the director said. Your training, your instincts, and your leadership make you the perfect candidate. Sarah felt a thrill of excitement mixed with seriousness. This was her chance to step beyond the academy and into the real challenges of space. She accepted without hesitation. In the following days, Sarah prepared for the mission. She trained harder than ever, studied every piece of information about Krylos, and worked closely with her team, a group of the Academy's best cadets and specialists. Jalen, Mira, and Tavo were with her, along with a few new faces. Lieutenant Kor, an experienced pilot, and Dr. Liana, a scientist who specialized in alien biology. The journey to Krylos took several days aboard a sleek starship. Sarah watched the stars pass by the window, thinking about how far she had come, from a lone Deathworlder to a leader in the galaxy's defense. When they arrived, Krylos was dark and silent. Sensors detected strange energy readings and signs of recent destruction. The team landed near what seemed to be an abandoned research station. Sarah led the group carefully through dense forests and rocky terrain. Dr. Liana examined the plants and soil, noting unusual radiation levels. This place is not natural anymore, she said. Something has disturbed the balance. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the shadows emerged large creatures, alien predators unlike anything Sarah had seen before. They moved quickly, eyes glowing with intelligence and hunger. The team prepared to defend themselves. Sarah remembered her training on Deathworld, how to stay calm, how to move with precision, how to use the environment. The fight was intense. Sarah used every skill she had, dodging attacks, striking weak points, and protecting her team. Jalen and Mira covered the flanks while Tavo set up traps and barriers. Dr. Liana shouted, "These creatures are being controlled. Someone or something is directing them." Sarah realized the danger was greater than they thought. The distress signal was a trap. She called the team back to the research station, where they found evidence of sabotage and hidden devices emitting strange signals. Lieutenant Kor scanned the area. "We need to destroy these devices to stop the control." Sarah agreed. "Jalen and Mira with me. Tavo and Dr. Liana cover our backs." The team moved quickly, dodging attacks and disabling the devices one by one. As they reached the last device, Sarah saw a figure watching from the shadows, a tall armored alien. The creature spoke in a harsh, broken language, but Sarah understood the meaning. They wanted to claim Krylos and stop anyone from interfering. Sarah stood her ground. "We won't let you take this planet," she said firmly. The alien charged, and the battle began. Sarah fought with everything she had learned, her Deathworlder's strength, her academy training, and the support of her team. The fight tested her limits, but Sarah's determination never wavered. Finally, with a well-timed move, Sarah disabled the alien's weapon and forced it to retreat. With the devices destroyed, the creatures calmed and fled into the wild. The team secured the research station and sent a report to the Alliance. Back on the ship, Sarah looked out at the stars again. The mission had been dangerous, but it proved something important. Strength was not just about fighting. It was about courage, teamwork, and standing up for what was right. Sarah knew the galaxy would always have threats, but she was ready. With her friends, her skills, and her spirit, she could face whatever came next. The stars ahead were bright and full of promise. Her journey was only beginning.